Oh. Yes, he's out and about doing the thing. So I'm here and we're recording now. So everybody smile. Okay, so how did the week go? All the code was good? Everybody had fun and learned a lot?
Yeah, for sure. Went more smoothly than anticipated, actually.
Oh, that's so fantastic to hear. Good. What was like your favorite thing that happened, or like what really felt good, felt productive?
Getting that little bit of Regex in there, because we hadn't used that before, and we're both very confused by it.
You and everybody else ever.
Yeah, so that was cool.
It's like hieroglyphics.
Good
It
for
is.
you.
That's such
Exactly
a good comparison.
Seriously.
You even got like some like slashes and underscores and make it
I have to use it like once every couple months. I'll need to use it for something, and I like feel so doomed every time it creeps up on me. I'm like, do I have to? Like, is there another way I can get around this and not deal with it at all? And then I usually just end up like messaging somebody like, can you tell me just how to do this, because you know it and I don't need to go learn it again. But I love that guide that you shared. I was like, I need to save this somewhere. Future Stacy will thank me. Okay. With that being said, who's ready to demo? You are. Any takers?
I think I can.
All right, Matthew's team.
Let me get my...
Yeah, I saw your last minute changes and I like just got home like a half hour ago. So I'm like, oh no.
Oh, no worries.
That is what teamwork is all about.
Yeah.
That is also what programming is all about. Generally, the last minute is when all the best changes happen.
Fair.
Yeah, that was one of the pros I think this week was we didn't have time to really work on it until Thursday night. So kind of crammed together on 2 nights and got it.
Well, you did the thing. Great job.
Can you see my screen?
Sure can.
Okay, so I'm going to try to remember exactly what our issues were, but I think there were 2 separate ones. And one was basically having the ability to come to the home screen and have an option to pop out a field where you can enter your token and then be prompted to go add your first item. So that was this part here. So when you press existing token, you get some really weird tokens, by the way.
They are very strange.
That is a funny token.
So it does kind of an automatic check until you meet the criteria of an existing token. So we had it start out as no list found up until the point where you enter one that's in there, and then it'll automatically show.
Well, that's interesting. So it's like every keystroke it's going and looking?
Yeah, it's the on change. And so it's constantly sending it to the back, and then as soon as it's valid, it'll appear.
One kind of security concern that comes to mind for me is like, imagine if this were like something that's supposed to be really secure, like a password or something. And it's like, you could just sort of like start typing until you guess something. And if something kind of pops up, it comes into place. Obviously that's not an issue for us. This is like totally fine, but that's just an interesting take on that.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. Yeah, I think what we were a little confused, maybe Haley can chime in, was about like there's a submit button thing that didn't really kind of fit with the way we had it. That might have been this part here.
Yeah. It said as part of the AC, like you had to have a submit button, so I wasn't sure if it was like submit to go to the next thing, or because it was doing the function without the submit, but then at the end just added it on there just in case.
Cool.
Yeah. And then the other part of it was the option to get the new token, and then on submit it'd create a collection which you could then share. So I'm assuming you'd send that to a friend and be like, I made this collection, this list, if you want to join it. And so that's what this option here does. When you select get new token, it gives you the token, and then once you press submit, say it's just a little alert just so you know it actually worked, and then that'll create that for you. And yeah, that was kind of the bulk of.
Awesome. So whenever you click generate new or get new token, it creates the new token in the database as soon as you click it, right?
It gives it shows you what the token's going to be, and then when you click submit, then it'll create that in the database.
Cool.
Yeah. So
I kind of like that you get to like, if like one comes up and you're like, oh, I just really don't like that one. You can be like, no, let's try a different one.
Yeah.
Submitting.
There are some. There you
like
go.
Like that one.
I feel like they're
example.
purposefully
They're all
meant to be names. But yeah.
Well, great. Do you want to show us like where things are living in the code base?
Of course.
Awesome.
So
this is looking really good.
The main app here.
Was there a pop-up when I pressed submit? Because I remember during our testing it did, but I didn't see it on your screen. Unless it's being hidden by something else.
Yeah, no, that popped up.
Okay.
So this was where we did most of the work. So we added the 2 new states here that start as false. Hello, little one. And so nothing displays when it first loads. And then once you press 1, so we put those on the onclicks for the get new token, existing token. So the handle existing token was just to show that existing token field, and it ensures that the other one's turned off. And then
Wait, am I the only one not seeing code?
No, I'm not seeing it either.
Okay.
I think you might need to share.
Did it go away?
Chrome. If you're only sharing Chrome browser, it won't show anything when you open VS Code.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Totally fine.
I thought it carried over. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, thanks for saying that. So these are the 2 new states that I was talking about. Show new token, show existing, and we had those hooked up to those 2 buttons down here. And so handle existing token only turns on the show existing token, and it turns off the new one. And then the generate token handler generates the token and then also shows the new field and ensures that the existing one's turned off. And so we created those new fields to show just with some quick ternaries, or are they still called ternaries if it's just the one option? Anyway,
if there's no question mark, then it's not a ternary. You're just doing like a there's an official
conditional render.
Yeah, just conditional rendering.
Yeah. Yeah, we had
Logical operators is what it's called.
What is it?
Logical
Say that again.
operators. It's a nonsense term. I would just say an and statement.
Yeah.
And statement, yeah.
So yeah, if one's true, it shows that. If the other's true, it shows that. I read Michael's comment that's probably worth looking into in the future about with the new routes. So we can definitely adjust this if need be. Yeah, so this is, I think, where everything is happening. I think that's kind of it.
Excellent. Great work this week. This is fantastic.
Thanks. Yeah, it took us till Thursday to be able to match up. So there's a bit of scrambling towards the end of the week there, but.
Well, you all bustled in the end to get this done. So great work. Cool. Great work. Up next. Michael, go ahead.
I was just gonna say about my comment, it's kind of fun to watch projects mature and you have very loose guidelines or requirements, and then as time goes on, you're like, well, it would make sense to do a route here. You start to form more opinions as you go. So that comment was something down that line of, as we see the project, build up, started to form more opinions about it. So yeah, take it or leave it.
Any other thoughts about that chunk of work for the week? Anybody? No?
Looks
Good.
great. I dig it.
I also dig it very much. Good job. Okay. Well, on that note, next demo.
So that'll be me. Jayla and I like just barely messaged each other right before this, and I'm going to go ahead and demo. So let's see here, get that share down. All right, so here is the app up. We gotta get our token. So that's a new one. Go to add items. And the way we were testing it is you just like put in an item, add an item. Oops, add an item. It adds. Try adding it again. Item was already in the list if it matches. And if there's a bunch of stuff, you can try adding that and it'll still recognize that it's still bananas and it'll tell you that it's already in the list. Otherwise that's pretty much it.
What happens if you like capitalize one of the ends or something?
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that part. Whoops. Whoa, what'd I do? Didn't mean to do that. But yeah, so if you capitalize it, it'll still recognize it as already in the list.
Excellent. Any other tricky little things anybody wants to test on this one? See what will and won't happen?
You have the one where it's if it capitalizes in the middle. What if you put in symbols in the middle too?
Yeah.
Ooh.
So you can put symbols
Everywhere.
Anywhere you want. Capitalize it anywhere you want. And it'll still be all, no.
Wow.
How dare you?
It's like,
bananas.
at what point are you like, no, this is a fully different item. I meant to put all of that in there.
Because I like these because I had a similar case at work where it tried to look for HTML in the field and turns out it only caught if it was in the beginning and not within the field. So it took a lot of like refactoring and redoing to do that. So I'm like watching out for those.
Okay.
Awesome.
A lot of test cases. So
well, great work on this one. You want to show us where it all lives?
Yeah, so we some of what we did was I guess it was kind of hard to kind of figure out where we were going to be like pulling the items from initially. So we lifted the state from the item list up into the app so that we could pass it down to the form, so that we could see the DB items from here. But that ended up not being a great way to do that because we really needed to be seeing the updated database collection and comparing to that, which is why this part is here, so we can get that snapshot when we run the handle submit function. So we added all the stuff to the handle submit function. This is the primary change that we made. So we have this new name takes in the user input, uppercases it, and then replaces, well, let's see if I can remember off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure that the W is going to be looking for all alphanumeric characters, white space, and underscores in the whole string, and replacing them with nothing, and then going back through and making, I don't remember, something spaces. Yeah, I don't really know, but it worked. Is kind of the best explanation I have.
That was still a fantastic explanation, and I hope that you get to say that again someday. I learned it, and I know it. You got this now. This is your thing. You're the Regex expert now.
I don't know about that. But so we do that, and it was pointed out that was a little redundant. We do it initially with the input, and then we do it here when we try to find the element. So the item within DB items, we look through and do the same thing to every item in the database until we find a match to the user input. And then that will return undefined, or it will return the item if it's a match. So if it returns undefined, meaning there's no match, then we'll allow it to go through and add the item to the database. Otherwise, you'll get that little alert. And that's it.
Awesome. So it's adding the like the actual user input into the database still, right?
Yep, that never
Awesome.
gets entered. It just gets checked against.
Perfect.
Yeah.
It looks great. I love it.
Yay.
Other thoughts, other comments?
I'm curious, is there any kind of input that you think I could be typing in where the validation actually changes the input at all? I guess, no, I don't think that would happen because you're only validating against existing stuff, not with like they're typing in necessarily.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, like with Regex, there's always like, for me in the back of my head, that it's going to validate something I didn't expect.
Oh, okay.
But
I don't think so, but I don't know.
okay.
I mean, it shouldn't change. You were concerned about it changing anything, or you're saying?
I guess if I typed in, you typed in something really funky in the example you were showing us with bananas, and then for me, what if I typed in something like that? Like maybe something on my list. My grocery list was something that had a weird like character in it, I guess.
Right.
You know, people are giving weird names to things these days, so I don't know. So that's just something I think about.
It's a fair
I don't know
point.
the answer.
No, I was wondering that too, because where I got the regex from, they were talking about how that would end up stripping out like totally valid alphanumeric characters that are not necessarily English characters, just like stuff with accents and umlauts or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, maybe, I don't know. So I don't know. I didn't test it with anything like that.
So like, what if you did like Ben ampersand Jerry's, and then you went to put in like Ben and Jerry's?
I don't know. Let's see. So, I mean, it probably, yeah, so that would need a whole condition, it seems like.
Interesting. This is great. This is still fantastic. There are so many edge cases here. And I think that what you've done is fantastic and covers so many of them. But this could be like a good, if you like drop into the repo and create an issue, you could create an issue to be like, let's beef up this matching a little bit and accommodate for situations like Ben and Jerry's, for example, or, you know, put in some other edge cases in there so that in the future you can go in and fix that if you want and make it a bit more robust, or you can, when the project is over, at least have some good examples of some like feature requests that you've submitted to the project.
Yeah, totally.
Cool. Any other thoughts? Go ahead.
Last thoughts on Regex and string validation. We have had entire, I'm not going to say like $1 million bugs, but definitely like 4-figure bugs from this, including one, for example, we stripped out special characters, but I work at Open Tables. We have restaurant names. So a restaurant name had like an apostrophe or something. And our fix for that made a whole new incident because then we were stripping out like something else entirely. Like it was like a 3-step thing. So like this comes up a lot. I mean, like don't worry about it right now. Obviously it's not necessary, but like especially in, I think like front end land, like this is like a solid 5% of my job.
Wow, that's fascinating though. So would you say like, do definitely spend time like getting to know Regex really well and understanding like kind of how to think through edge cases and the path that those might follow? Do you think that's like a good investment of time?
Maybe not Regex so much, just form validation in general, which Regex is a choice for that.
Cool. That's great advice.
There's a lot of regex that you can write that is not client facing, like in your build tools, like what files you're including in your build and things like that. I write a lot of regex in my job, but a lot of it's not client facing. And I would say that one of the things to learn about regex is when to use it and when to not use it, and knowing like the upside and downside. So
how well do you know regex off the top of your head, or do you reference some guide?
About 2%. I'll look at the regex and kind of get like a gist of what it's doing, but generally to debug regex, it's really difficult for me. I have to use another tool to plug it in. I'll plug in examples that I expect to validate or not validate correctly, and then yeah, to me it's like a whole process. It's like it'll derail my whole day. I'm not good at regex.
I love it. Well, if you could share any of the tools that either one of you use throughout your day, that would be super awesome.
Good idea.
And put them in the Slack channel so that they live on forever and ever and ever. Okay. On that note, I know Michael's digging things up right now, but he's also going to be doing a learning module on pair programming.
Yep. 1 second, I'm going to post this link in here.
Excellent. As soon as you're ready, we will talk about it. I hope pair programming has been like super awesome for you all and valuable. And hopefully after this, you'll be like, have a whole new idea of how to make it super efficient and awesome so that you can take it out into your world with you and teach others. And use it to just be super mega awesome devs, obviously.
All right, can you see my screen?
We sure can.
All right. I'm hearing my echo. I don't know what it is, but it's always like startling to hear your echo when you're talking. You don't like know what your own voice sounds like sometimes.
They sound perfect to us.
Thank you. Can you see this still, the widescreen presented version of this? All right. So we have a short and sweet presentation this week, and we're gonna learn and talk about pair programming. So I want to preface this with the fact that I have been writing code for a long time, and I would consider myself a pair programming, not neophyte. That's pretty far in the new spectrum, but somewhere like if you take the middle end of the spectrum and then a little closer to like newbie. I'm not very experienced with pair programming. I've done a bit of it, but I think I'm learning a lot more now, especially that I'm working in a remote environment. And that just goes to show you that everything we're going to talk about in this presentation is not a hard and fast rule of how one team works. Pair programming is a tool that you can use in your professional career, with the tautology, use in your job to get the job done, depending on the circumstances. So just take that in mind as we talk about this. So what is pair programming? Let's talk about the anatomy of it. Obviously, it involves two people that work together to solve one problem. And how it works generally is that there's a driver and a navigator. So the driver is the one who is typing on a keyboard. They're generally sharing their screen. Either if you're in the same physical location, you're standing at a desk and the other person is standing next to you, but you're the one typing. If you're remote, then you're sharing your screen on Zoom or something like that. This person types and they try to talk through what they're working on, what they're trying to solve. You want to make sure that whatever's going on in your brain is out in the open so the other person can be as involved as possible. So the other person involved is like the navigator. So they listen to what the other person's doing. They watch what they're doing on the screen. And they're trying to make sense of it all. So give me a quick show of hands. If you've ever been stuck on a problem and then tried to explain it to somebody and immediately, like once you started talking through it, it doesn't have to be code, anything. Once you explain this to somebody, you're like, oh, that's just, I get it now. You just had to explain it to somebody. Let me see a show of hands. So I feel like I just peer pressured everybody into raising their hand, but some of those hands are probably honest. So it's super common in programming to get stuck in your head, get stuck in a problem, and you're just banging your head against the keyboard. And as soon as you explain it to somebody, it makes sense, right? Oh, what I meant to do was blah. And as soon as I talked it through, I know what I was doing. We actually call that the rubber duck debugging method. So what people will do, we did this at Disney. We all had like a Disney character on our desk, and whenever you had a problem, before you ask a coworker, you had to like explain it to your Daffy Duck. Daffy Duck debugging, so I did that a lot. But when you're pair programming, that's kind of what the navigator does. Is they're like the real life living rubber duck that listens and tries to make sense of stuff. If just explaining the problem doesn't solve it, then that person will actually engage with the driver with questions and try to lead the discussion in a way to arrive to a solution. So we have the kind of the workflow of how pair programming works. Two developers, like I said, they get on a video screen share call, and the driver will type and ask questions. Or sorry, the navigator will ask questions while they're driving and typing. So once your session is over, and this can happen multiple times in one pair programming session, there's no hard and fast rule about how long it should take. You can do it in 30 minutes. You can pair program for a whole day if you want. But eventually you're going to want to stop. And so you should commit your code, push it up to a branch, and then when you want to switch off, the other person can check that branch out and be the driver from there on. And then you can start the cycle all over again. So what's important when pair programming is having the right mindset and attitude. When you're working on code, it's really easy. It's kind of a vulnerable position, if you will, kind of like here presenting. I can say the wrong thing, right? But when you're typing and writing code, you can type the wrong thing, and you can create like an error where React will yell at you, or TypeScript will yell at you if you're using that tool. It's just a vulnerable position. So if you're the navigator, it's really important to have a positive attitude, and it's not about correcting someone or telling them what they did wrong. It's about working together to solve the problem. There's a really cool analogy here about Stacy, help me out here. I know the actual, I don't know the name of it, but I know what they're trying to get at, the Lego principle. Is that right?
I guess that's what you could call it. That seems fair.
Yeah, so when you're building something, right, you build it with Legos, and then when someone else comes in and wants to like add to the building, let's say you're building a skyscraper with Legos, and then someone comes in later and tries to add to it, it's really easy to be like, no, I didn't want to put a window there. No, I didn't want to add a garden on the 17th floor. But in the end, you're all collaborating together. You have to be selfless and let people add to your Lego skyscraper, because their ideas are just as good as yours. So when it comes to peer programming, it's all about working together. Nobody's ideas are wrong or right. It's about working together to get to the solution. But yeah, one of the really cool and important things about navigators is you should be asking questions and not telling people, do this, do that. I think even in a very like strong relationship with somebody where there's a lot of trust built up, even just telling somebody what to do all the time can get kind of fatiguing. And I think when you ask questions, you come from a place of like curiosity rather than mandating. So think about that. So I want to open the floor to have everyone else talk about what pair programming has been like so far here at Collab Lab, and then also if you have done pair programming in other environments. So if anybody wants to jump in and give some examples of just like things that you've done with other people, please feel free. And if not, I have a really awesome example here, so we won't be completely silent here.
I could go on forever as well. So let us know how it's been going. What's one thing that like went really well for you so far at Collab Lab?
I'll say something.
Sure.
This is pretty much my first, at least remote pair programming, and even in general pair programming too. We only did like a day or two in my boot camp. And I did this first, and then like within that week, or like maybe immediately following the next week, I kind of did it in my actual job. And so like it's all kind of come really fast, but this came first, and it helped me be more comfortable. But it's been really cool. Like, and with Zoom and Skype and VS Code Live, there's like a lot of different options to kind of test out and see which ones are better. Yeah, I've really enjoyed pairing with everyone so far, and I think everyone's been really, I don't know the right word, like polite, or like just kind of like comfortable in letting, you know, people try things out, and yeah, no real judgment or anything. Just there's no right way to code. So
have you been noticing that you've been doing that kind of like driver navigator switch, or kind of how has the like control and like task delegation been for you? Who's been doing what? What's been working that way?
we haven't swapped mid call, but like on like, I don't know, the Monday one person's done it and the Tuesday the other person's done it. So we've swapped kind of between the calls like that. And yeah, I know personally, I think I've said it like every time I've been a driver, that I do need to speak out loud more. It's something I'm conscious of and I'm trying to work on.
That's awesome.
But, yeah.
That's like my favorite thing about the like driver navigators. Anyway, the driver and navigator relationship is that each one of those roles gives you such a unique skill set that you don't get from the other one. So like as you're driving, getting to get into the nitty gritty and explain everything that you're doing is a totally different skill set than what you're going to get as a navigator when you're thinking more high level and you're asking questions to kind of help somebody get to the answers like that, and the research that you're doing along the way. So I think that if you can find a way to sort of switch on and off, like in the same call while you're working on the same problems, you can get such a well-rounded view about this one issue that you're working on and really grow a lot through the process. What else? Who else is doing the pair program thing and finding unique stuff?
I would like to say that I feel like pair programming so far has been a lot more of a dialogue than some of the other times I've pair programmed, like I'm a boot camp, because it can definitely turn into like the navigator kind of dictates everything, and the driver is just kind of there to do the manual work. But every single call I've had, we've bounced ideas off of each other and really worked together. Even this last time with Rachel, we did switch mid-call, and it was, oh, you had this idea, I don't really understand it, do you want to take over? So that was really good and helped us solve our problem like really quickly.
That's awesome. Yeah, it definitely does not feel good when somebody's like just dictating to you like what to write and what to do, and there's no good growth there. So I'm glad to hear that it's been not like that with your Collab Lab stuff.
I wanted to give an example of with that in mind, of like, you know, you can imagine a scenario where the navigator is just telling the driver what to do, right? Backseat driver. But there are situations where you actually pair with people who aren't strong programmers, but they're strong in other ways. They're part of your team, and I think that pair programming is really effective there. Maybe there's somebody in support who knows this feature inside and out, like a customer would know it, and then give you feedback on the fly. Or like I just did last week, I have a feature that I got like 90% done, and I didn't really feel good about the UI. So I just reached out to the designer on my team and asked him, hey, do you want to spend an hour just polishing this work? And, you know, he can kind of speak in terms of CSS, but he doesn't know the code base really well. So I'd say, hey, like, what's the border radius on this? How many pixels do you want in between this? And we just sit there and make everything pixel perfect right in the call. And all it took was 1 hour. On the other hand, if we didn't do that, it would be him creating a document or Jira cards with all these, like, he'd have to go in and create screenshots of what he wanted to look like, and it would be a whole thing. But in the end, we just did it in like an hour, and it felt really good. So that's another example of pair programming. You don't have to be with another programmer to do it. So
totally.
Yeah.
What else? How else has it been? I'm really curious to know like what your sessions have been looking like, or like how you think you're going to change based on what you learned today, like what new things you think you're going to do.
I guess I kind of wanted to make a comment about when you're navigating and like how to not give orders, like even though you think like you know what's up, like you can say like we did a lot of pair programming in Epicoda, so this came up a lot. And just like phrasing everything like a question, like what do you think about this, or like I wonder if it would work like this if you did this, like what do you think, like, and just like really framing stuff, and like if you think you know, like frame it as a question, because maybe you don't know. Also.
Yeah.
I think that phrasing it in a question really invites dialogue rather than mandating something and then it's like, well, I guess I don't have a decision here. You're telling me to do it, right? So
it also like I
definitely.
feel like really helps you learn better than being told, because when I'm like pair programming with one of our like more senior level engineers and they ask me a question and put me on the spot, like all of a sudden my brain starts like running in circles and I like feel under pressure. And when I finally get to the answer through like kind of being pushed in that direction and never being actually told, but having to like synthesize it on my own, that's when I'm like, I know the answer. I feel good because I came up with it, rather than somebody being like, this is the answer. Know it. Let's move on. It's like, help me get there. I'll know it. And now I can help other people grow.
That's such a good like point to make. So have y'all seen the SNL skit with Jimmy Fallon where he's the IT guy and they call him and they're like, oh, I can't get this thing to work, and then his whole like tagline is move, and then they get up out of the chair and then he sits down and fixes it. So I suffer from this a lot where I know the answer to a thing, and when someone wants to talk about like, hey, how can I solve this, I just want to get in there and be like, move, and just do it for them and say, here's the solution, peace out. But it's a really good learning opportunity for both people if you work together to get there and ask questions to have the other person like catch up with you. So yeah,
hard facts.
Yeah. Don't be the Jimmy Fallon move guy.
Other thoughts on it? I know one thing that was brought up was that like there was maybe you hadn't been switching mid-session. I think Radhika, weren't you saying before that like, I feel like I heard you talking one time about like maybe switching every 20 minutes or something. What do you all think about switching?
Andrew and I were talking about possibly doing mob programming with all four.
Right, that was it.
Yeah, I don't have any thoughts on that beyond that. It's I feel okay. So like listening to everyone's conversations right now, I think the slower pace of pair programming is probably better. Mob programming is very problem oriented. I've done it at work, like not officially, but everyone crowded around a table switching back and forth, and it's very good for like debugging really hard problems. But I think for this kind of feature creation, the slower paced talking it out that y'all are doing is probably better.
Any other like kind of ahas or I want to try that?
We used to do 30 minutes in Epicodus. It wasn't like a hard rule, but it was a really good like baseline where it's just like to keep in mind that like we're both learning and we both kind of want to drive and we both kind of want to navigate. So to kind of give each other a turn and make sure like when we hit that 30-minute, okay, your turn, let's switch. That's all.
I love it.
There is a tech startup here in Gainesville called IT Pro TV. They create like learning videos for companies that want to like have people go through trainings, but their engineering team, so I know a couple of people who work there, 100%, and I'm not exaggerating, except if it's like a one-off bug fix. Like all new feature development is done in pair programming sessions. They like scheduled on the calendar, we're going to program for 2 hours here and 2 hours there, but everything goes through pair programming, which is really interesting. It kind of boggles my mind. I've never been in that environment, but they write a lot of good code. So it seems to work.
It's like really great. I love pair programming so much, but there have been so many times when I've been pair programming with somebody who I'm like, this person is so much more experienced than I am. And I feel so much further down on the totem pole, and I'll catch things that they don't, or I'll be like able to ask the questions like that doesn't quite make sense. And then when they start thinking about it a little more, they're like, you're right, this doesn't make any sense at all. And so I think that like in any organization, it's super healthy to do this kind of thing to help bring like more diverse knowledge to the code base and like have just more sets of eyes on it, rather than like if that developer had like pushed up this code and I looked at, you know, the PR, I would have been like, yep, looks good, but never like been in the moment enough to ask those questions and kind of like refine it to a better place. So pair programming for the win. Have you all been liking it? Is it like, does it feel good to do it? Is it, or is it like, you're like, oh, I have to pair program again?
For me, since I'm starting from zero, I've never pair programmed ever before. A lot of solo projects, but I do a lot of collaborative questions at work. And honestly, it's way better. Like rubber duck programming, you can just grab someone and it's like, oh, did you think of this, 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 and this? It helps being in support because you know which questions to ask or leading questions. But yeah, slowly getting better at it. I'm that imposter syndrome person that I'm like, I feel like I know the least, but at least I can ask questions and lead from there, I hope. But
I'm with you. That's my whole life.
But now I'm not as scared if someone's like, hey, want to... And then the assumption that Jayla brought up is like, from what I've read, I thought it would be like, you have to say like, write this, write this, write this, and then the other person does it. But I like the more collaborative, definitely.
Cool. Other thoughts while I pull up next week's issues so that we can kind of grind on that for a minute?
While you're pulling that up, I'll leave you with one last interesting like scenario that you might find yourself pair programming in. So it happened to me actually Friday. My teammate and I were working on a feature together where we were working on different parts of it and didn't really talk. We talked about at the beginning of the week how we wanted to solve it, but we didn't really integrate any of our stuff, and we wanted to get something released on Friday. So we just jumped on a call for an hour and a half. And I rebased my PR or my branch into his. I worked out all the conflicts with him on the call and hey, this one, what do you think? Oh, we need both of them, or I can get rid of this line because you did it here, kind of stuff happened. And within an hour and a half, we had the whole thing integrated, where I think if we didn't do a pair programming thing, then that would have been like a whole like day of work and bugs could have came out of it. So if you find yourself in that situation where you need to like jam a bunch of code together with somebody else, pair programming is definitely good because you know you can talk to those type of issues that you might not have the context to otherwise.
Awesome. Any final thoughts on pair programming? This doesn't have to be the final time we talk about it. You can talk about it whenever you want. But as for us right now on this call, any last thoughts?
I'll just say I've really enjoyed it. I was just thinking back to, I remember somebody asked me if I wanted to pair on something like back in like October, and I was terrified. Just like a stranger coming into like my home just felt really, really nerve wracking. And so doing this in this environment, like even after just, what are we, like 3 weeks in, I already feel like, all right, yeah, hop on. And like, I just feel it's a comfort level that's really, really gone up for me.
That's awesome.
That's been part of the bigger advantages.
I love to hear it. And what another like of my favorite things about pair programming is it gives you like the exercise of talking through the things that you're doing, because I think most of us just like learned on our own in our offices and bedrooms by ourselves and never got the time to like articulate those things. So as you go into interviews and stuff, you're like, so there's this thing and I don't know what to call it or how to talk about it because I've never had to do it out loud. And so like having to like talk to somebody about it in like a safe space is a really great way to grow and kind of like refine those skills so that later on down the line, you're like, oh yeah, I'm comfortable. I've talked about Regex before. I've walked through Regex code and explained what it does. I can do it again, no big deal. So pair programming. Okay, on that note, because it's 44 already, let's shift gears. Issues 7 and 5 from last week are still in the review in progress column on the board. What's the status of those? Here, I'll link to the project too so that you can get there quick.
I think they're done. I think everyone approved. So we could move that, sorry.
Cool, no problem.
Some conflicts on there though. I haven't looked at what they exactly were.
Okay, cool. But the like work
yeah,
is done. We just need to work through like merge conflicts or something.
Yep.
Awesome. So I'll just leave that to you all to kind of shift those over to the done column whenever they're fully merged and up in production. It looks like the next 2 issues for next week are issues 8 and 9. Oh, and I didn't pull up the pairs, so sorry about that. Somebody else want to get them? Number 8 is, as a user, I want to mark an item on my shopping list as purchased. So you go to the store, purchase an item, I want to mark it on the list as purchased. Number 8 is, as a user, I want to filter my shopping list to make it easier to locate an item in the list. So kind of like a search. If I have bananas and I start writing BAN, it's like, maybe you wanted bananas. Here it is. So those are the 2 issues. Anybody want to snag the first one that they really love and want to do?
Matthew are a pair this week. Jayla and Haley are. So make your decisions based on that.
Do it. It's okay to be greedy and take the one that you want, as long as you're the first one to do it. So there's marking an item as purchased, and there's filtering the list.
Okay, I'm going to pick marking an item as purchased.
All right. Then we have it. Let's see, mark an
Nice.
item as purchased. Number 8. Okay, so pop into the GitHub project, assign that one to yourself, and the other one can go to the other team. And then with that, I think the next step for us, if we don't have any other like high-level questions, any other high-level questions while we're here? Because I think next we'll just break out into breakout rooms and kind of go over how to get started on these, answer any initial questions. Are we good with that? Everybody feel like excited to jump into this next week and confident, ready to tackle it and do the thing?
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in with the marking the shopping list item on the shopping list as purchased.
Cool. Okay, and then Radhika on filtering the list. Good. Okay, I'll have you create your own Zoom meeting. This has been an absolute pleasure. You are all doing a fantastic job. I hope that the pair programming learning module was insightful for you and gave you some good ammo to take into your future as a developer at Cloud Lab and at any other place that you go to. Okay, with that, I'll see you around Slack. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
But
Bye.
if you're on ticket number 8, the marking the item as purchased, I'm gonna put a Zoom link in the channel. So just look for that in 1 second.
Are you gonna make a new one? I can stay here.
Oh yeah, you just
Yeah, I just had to authorize Zoom. So yep, there it is. There's the link.
Okay. So I think
See it?
Jayla and Haley, y'all are doing the ticket number 9?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Cool.
Okay.
So yeah.
I don't think I can leave without transferring, so I'm gonna stay, but it's not weird. It's Terry. Okay.
I feel like it's clearly
Not
the
weird
thing
to
this
say.
anyway, so your input would be appreciated.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Okay, let me share my screen first. However I do that. Oh, here we go. The bright green button, right? Right. Oh, is that the wrong screen?
That's
Shoot.
the
I see
issue.
GitHub issue. Looks good.
Okay, cool. All right, so as a user, I want to filter my shopping list to make it easier to locate an item on the list. So we're going to display a text field at the top of the shopping list. As the user types into the field, the list narrows to include only items that contain the text the user entered into the field. When the field has text in it, the user should be able to tap a UI element, example with an X button next to the field to clear the field. Okay. Initial thoughts.
So the X, I'm guessing, is clear the input field of where they're typing in.
Yeah.
Okay. That part should be easy. It kind of reminded me of when you were mentioning the regex, is like if someone just starts typing it and then eventually gets it, it feels like that. But
do y'all have any idea about how you want to filter the items? Just off the top of your head.
I know I want to use maybe like an on page and maybe like local to compare. But I'm wondering if this like field goes on the first page, you know, the actual list item page, or where would we put it?
That is a good question. Stacy, do you know that?
Yeah, so I think that if you're trying to, so the idea here is that you're looking at a list and you're filtering that list. So it's probably going to go on the page that actually displays all of the list items.
Okay.
That makes sense. Yeah. Otherwise, are there any technology gaps that you think you have, other than this might include regex again? Apart from the regex, is there anything else that might be confusing about this?
Not at first glance. I've done filter before, like made a successful like search and filter function, but I'd probably need to look at that code again before to kind of like figure out what steps I took. But I think this will be not easy, but this won't be too bad this week.
Yeah, especially with if you work with, can probably implement something similar to I agree with the regex and then filter. I feel like I've used it before, but it's been a while. Can't remember when that was, but.
One thing that you might want to keep in mind too is like, I think that it's like natural to think like, oh, well, if we have bananas and I type in BAN, it should pull it up. But let's also consider that if we type NAN or, you know, ANA, that it should also filter that too, because what if we've just, you know, misspelt it or forgot a letter or something. So kind of think about that as well.
Because that'll probably, if you search, like there's other foods that have that in. Like, should it start with that in the beginning, or trying to think of, like in the middle, like you said, NAN, like why would you start typing NAN to get bananas? But maybe that's just me.
Or just
maybe
like, variations like potato and sweet potato. If I type in potato, I want to make sure that
true.
it's returned.
Yeah.
Exactly. I love it.
Golden potato.
Yeah, there's a lot of scope for like making this super simple, but I think if y'all have extra time, like adding that extra validation and making it handle these kinds of edge cases would be really cool to see. But no pressure, of course. Just first do the AC and then worry about like the validation beyond that.
Got it.
Feeling confident? Feeling ready to take on this week?
So.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
All right. Well, we're totally here for you if you have questions. Be noisy in Slack. Let us know where we can help, and we're gonna crush this filter.
All right, I will talk to y'all soon. Let us know when you're meeting and if you need help.
Cool.
Okay.
All right, bye team.
Thank you guys.